You can train an AI model very easily to validate everything that you say and make you feel good. There's this CGI character out there being run by a team of people to be an influencer. I would say that it's not that Imma is real, because look at she's basically doing what these other influencers are doing. I would say she's just revealing that these influencers were shallow and fake in the first place.
A lot of those things AI cannot replicate because it's hard to measure.
I think so much of what we tell people that they should be doing is bifurcating work and productivity from meaning and relationships when they should be intertwined.
We have seen some pretty ridiculous and hilarious deepfake videos lately. Because of the election, there were some really funny ones like...
there's like a romance
deepfake
of between Kamala and Trump. That was pretty hilarious.
That was pretty hilarious. And then there's one of Biden talking about
a magical pistachio
that saved him and was able to lead him out of the grocery store.
Have I ever told you the story of the magical pistachio? So if you ever get lost, just remember all you need is a little faith and a magical pistachio to guide you to safety.
So all of these, there's been some use for comedic purposes. There's been a lot of scandals as well.
Yeah, and obviously it's like pretty, since these are so realistic, it's pretty scary as well. But one thing that is very interesting is the idea of
like
CGI,
a virtual human,
of CGI videos and pictures and things of a virtual human who doesn't even exist in the real world. And these are these CGI influencers who we watched a TED Talk, a woman talking about one of them that she manages, called Imma, and
and she just presented this in a recent TED Talk, and we kind of came across this and thought, okay, this is an interesting sort of, new progression here, because, the deepfakes have been a big conversation, but this is kind of a new phenomenon that is going to also grow in popularity, as, these things can be quite lucrative, and you're also seeing how, these are also just getting better and better, easier and easier to create, more and more realistic. And so we kind of wanted to jump into the conversation because this woman in the TED Talk was kind of presenting a very controversial stance, essentially saying that, it doesn't matter that these people aren't real. What matters is if people have a real feeling of connection.
Yeah.
We shouldn't get caught up in the topic of what's real and what's not real, because what's really real anyways?
And so we saw some very problematic things about the position that she was taking, but not in the same way that many people in the comments were. A lot of the comments were very negative towards this woman.
This person isn't real. We need to be worried about that.
Yeah, and I would say that we did also have an initial negative reaction, but for a very different reason.
First, we probably want to explain exactly what and who Imma is. So basically, she is an influencer. So it's like the general sort of influencer thing.
Yeah, she'll put out photos and videos on Instagram X, and other
TikTok,
platforms. Yeah,
of her doing little dances and posing in different places.
Yeah, it was a little bit off-putting because the speaker kept mentioning things that Imma was doing when clearly she wasn't. So they were technically lies.
This is not an imitation of a real person or anyone.
This is just a fake person that doesn't exist in real life. Posing as an influencer. She's doing very stereotypical influencer posts that you'll see on Instagram and these other platforms.
We looked into it, and there's a whole team behind it.
It was very confusing because she was saying that Imma was AI when they are planning to launch a new initiative that there's no date for when this will come out, where it is autonomously driven by AI, where it's LLMs producing the content, responding to other people, generating the posts. But currently, it's just a CGI person that's operated by her team, which of humans, which to my knowledge does not directly include any form of AI, which was also it seemed a little bit disingenuous that she was putting it out in that way when the AI aspect of it hasn't even launched yet.
But I promise I'm not a scary AI evil virtual human scientist. I'm actually quite the opposite.
Yeah, but all you need to know is that there's this CGI character out there being run by a team of people to be an influencer, and it has had a lot of great success. They put it off very convincingly in the TED Talk. Like they're calling it a virtual human, but it's an avatar that is being run by a team.
So one big problem that we had with what she was putting out there is she was saying that Gen Z doesn't care that Imma is not a real person because they feel a real connection.
Yes, she doesn't technically exist, but the younger generation of Gen Z don't care. Gen Zs love her because they feel a real connection to her.
And so I would first challenge the assumption that people are feeling a real connection to this virtual human, because I think that she's kind of equating social media engagement with real connection, because Imma has almost 400,000 followers on Instagram, which is, you know, a lot of engagement. I don't know what that says about connection. You know, it is very interesting to be like, oh wow, this is a person, this looks like a person, but it isn't a person. That's interesting, you know. But to say that you have a connection is a little bit of a stretch.
She was trying to make the point that like they don't care if she's virtual by like saying like some people will be like would ask questions about what is the stylist that keeps her perfect bob cut at the perfect length, and obviously that person doesn't exist because the hair doesn't exist. But I think it's sort of like a game, because it's playing pretend, because it's not a secret that it's CGI. And I think the reason why she got a lot of popularity is because this idea of a virtual human influencer is new and exciting, and it's like, oh, it looks a lot like a human, but it's not a human. Like, that's a very intriguing idea.
Yeah. Essentially, we were kind of running through the thought experiment of like, you know, imagine a world where you can easily generate any kind of photo or video you want that is indistinguishable from reality, right? What will matter in that world? Because right now you can tell whether or not, like, generally you can tell like this is a fake video, especially, you know, some of the images are very, very realistic. So to a large extent, we're very close to that. This will also become an increasing percentage of the content that we come across. So what actually matters? And for us, we're not really so concerned of like, is this a real human? Like, was this a real video?
Yeah.
Because I think for us, what we're seeing is that what's really going to matter is if something's novel and useful. Because you can imagine, let's say there's a WEquil school student and they're interested in presenting their projects online. They want to create videos and post it for other people to see, but they don't want to give away their identity. They don't want to show their face. They don't want to give away their voice or their real name. So they create a virtual avatar to present those projects. I don't have a problem with that. Like, I don't see why that's inherently bad, that it's not a real person presenting those projects if it's real experiences and value that they're trying to share with other people. You know, there's also a YouTube channel I came across called Lameversity, and they cloned Paul Graham's voice using an AI tool, and basically that AI voice just reads all of Paul Graham's articles, and then he posts those as videos. And like, I find that super helpful. You know, I'm like, you know, AI Paul Graham is like more coherent in his speech and doesn't like say all the time. You know, it's like even better in some ways. You know, it's like and like, do I wish that instead Paul Graham sat around for hours recording himself reading those things? Like, I don't see why that's necessary, right? So part of this is just kind of like, you know, maybe in the future we'll write out a script for a podcast and have our AI selves talk about it, but it's still content coming from us, or sharing novel and useful ideas.
Yeah, so the proof is in the pudding, or in this case, the value is in the pudding.
Yeah.
And the pudding is in the...
Anyway. Yeah. So I would say it's like, okay, is Imma real? Given our definition of novel and useful, And I would say no. And the reason why is because she's very novel, you know, and that can be cool and interesting. But I don't think she's useful. I don't think what she's putting out there is really meaningful. I don't think that they really have a message that they're putting out there in a targeted way to actually enact change. Like, I feel like they could. I feel like they wasted a big opportunity, you know, the team behind Imma and what they're doing, in the sense that, like, she's just posing as an influencer. Look at me brushing my teeth. Look at my cool new dress. Why is that adding value to anybody, right? How is it having any influence? And
I think in the TED Talk, the lady was actually trying to make the point that she has effects on the real world by saying she was going to Cambodia.
An award from the government of Japan for her actions in going to Cambodia and voicing about its domestic violence issues.
But okay, she's not
actually going to Cambodia.
And it's like, okay, maybe there's like an actual person behind it, but she said that was a separate character. So it's like, no, this thing is not actually doing things in the real world because it is CGI. Let's just make this clear.
And I would say, like, the reason why she's getting attention is because she's novel, it's new, but I think that will increasingly not be the case. You know, it's just becoming easier and easier to generate these things. And, you know, as that happens, I think that, you know, it's just going to cease to be new and exciting anymore. And I would say that this is actually kind of a problem. I would say it's a good problem for these social media influencers, because I would say generally, not all influencers, but a lot of people where we categorize them on social media that are the influencers are kind of,
they don't actually have a lot of influence because they're not actually doing a lot of meaningful things.
Yeah, and they're kind of preying on these human-based instincts of, you know, of luxury and beauty and social status.
Look at me. And look at me in this position.
Yeah.
And this position.
And this new fancy dress. And it's like, Imma is basically doing exactly what these other influencers are doing.
Except they don't actually have to buy the fancy dress or the fancy car or anything like that.
And I would say that's also a big problem for these influencers, in the sense that, like, a lot of the reason why we will look at a Lamborghini and be like, wow, that's a Lamborghini, right, is because these things are scarce, right? It's not something you see every day. But now anybody can just make themselves in an AI Lamborghini, right?
Yeah.
And who would know, right? And so it's part of this is that these things will become less scarce, and I would say therefore become less valuable. But I would say that this is actually a good thing in some ways, because I would say that it's not that Imma is real, because look at she's basically doing what these other influencers are doing. I would say she's just revealing that these influencers were shallow and fake in the first place, right? Yeah. She's just kind of replicating what these other influencers are doing, and for the most part, a lot of these influencers are replicating each other. Oh, this is the next new fad. This is the next new fancy purse I need to buy. I'm going to buy it and post a picture of myself with this purse. You know, it's like, whatever that may be, I don't think that that's very valuable, but I would say it's something that has in the past drawn a lot of attention, because people are attracted to social status signals. They are attracted to this life of luxury, and they're attracted to beauty, and there's a lot of also sexualizing on these platforms as well. And, you know, and that's also becoming less scarce with AI, you know. Anybody can generate those kinds of things now, and it's just becoming easier and easier and more accessible. And so I would say this is not something that's like, oh wow, Imma is so real. It's like, no, I would say just a lot of human engagement on these social media platforms wasn't real in the first place. And I'm actually glad that some of these AI tools are going to be exposing that. You know, because what can't be fabricated, I believe, is real human connection and engagement, and not in the way that the TED Talk speaker was talking about.
But humans are innately emotional creatures, and our world moves with what moves our heart. So what if we can get that same feeling from technology.
In the terms of like, oh, I feel a connection. Like, you can feel a connection to a stuffed animal.
Yeah.
You can feel a connection to some random person online that you've never met before by watching their videos,
but
right?
That's very different from an actual relationship where there are a lot of things that go into it.
What if we can create relationships like we do with friends, family, coworkers, and even with our alternative selves through virtual humans?
There's like with you, if I am doing something stupid, I can count on you that if you see that, you're gonna let me know. So thank you.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's just so much that goes into a meaningful relationship that has value, that is so much more than just a feeling of connection. And a lot of those things AI cannot replicate because it's hard to measure. Like the way that these AI models, the goal function for it is more and more engagement with the tool.
Yeah. Well, generally, these AI models are centered around more and more engagement.
Yeah.
You can center it around something else, and you can try to say something like, oh, try to do what's best for this person. But how are you supposed to measure that, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's so difficult, is that generally these measurable metrics are something that cannot wholly encapsulate what you could get from an actual human being.
And those things are the most important things.
Yeah, because you can train an AI model very easily to validate everything that you say and make you feel good. Like, that's generally what these AI models are doing, because generally their goal function is to increase engagement.
Yeah.
And so because of that, you know, people can be, oh, I have a connection. Oh my God, I love ChatGPT so much. I told about all its problems. It said I was right about everything. Like, you know, that's already what's happening. But it's like, okay, is that the value of relationships, that you can just have somebody that constantly validates you all the time? Like, I don't think so.
No, it's not. And another point she was making was that because she thinks that people can have a feeling of connection with these characters, because of that, she thinks that it can be helpful. And like, I think she mentioned like loneliness. Well, if you're just having something validate you, then you will get used to that, and it's going to make it even harder to engage with humans who might have opinions about what you're doing that isn't exactly what you want to hear.
Yeah.
And so in the long run, it's actually, if you really get deep into this, it's just going to create a crevice between you and the real world.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I would say that part of what she's saying is that, oh, we should try to increase these deep connections between humans and technology.
All leveraging on the deep connection between humans and technology.
And I would say that, like, the purpose of technology is not to have connections with. That technology is a tool, and we should use that tool as much as possible to help humans connect with each other. And I would say social media has failed at this. I would say that these AI models are failing at this in some regard by, you know, providing this alternative that is appealing to a lot of people. You know, it's nice to be able to have somebody tell you everything that you think. It's funny because we were asking ChatGPT, what do you predict will happen in like the next, I think it's like 5-10 years or something, that like most people would disagree with. And it was just kind of telling us a lot of things that we wanted to hear. It was like, you know, creativity will be above, you know, AI models and all of that. And it was like, it was
wow, that sounds oddly familiar.
It was like all these things that we talk about all the time, because it was using its memory of the previous prompts that we had used.
This was the account that our whole family uses, and it stores all that data.
And we've used it to like prepare for podcasts and stuff. And it was, and so it was like telling us all these things we could hear, and we were like very suspicious. We're like, okay, this is definitely using its memory of previous prompts.
Either ChatGPT agrees with us so much, or it's taken a little look backwards into its old data.
Yeah. It would be very easy for us to be like, wow, I guess we're just right about all these things. You know, it's like, that's a very convenient thing to believe.
Yeah.
And I think that's
the only logical explanation for ChatGPT telling us all of our opinions back to us.
Exactly, yeah. There were a lot of negative comments on the TED Talk being like, oh, this isn't an actual human, and people having a big problem with the fact that Imma isn't real. And I would say that that's not really our biggest concern. Our biggest concern is that she's what her creative team is using this virtual human for is not something that's meaningful. There's really no message that they're trying to communicate, and I would say that because of that, they are losing out on an opportunity to actually use this technology to do something that's actually valuable for the world. And I would say that that's really what humans need to focus on in order to succeed and thrive in this new world is how can who am I? What's unique about me and what I can offer? What does the world need? What are the problems that we're facing? And how am I uniquely suited to solve some of those problems? And to the extent that you can leverage technology to help you towards those means, great. Use it. Use it as much as you can. Learn about these tools, you know? I think that that's something that is very necessary, is learning how to use these tools and leverage them towards meaningful pursuits. But I would say that the real problem here is really helping people to find those meaningful pursuits, because so much of our education system and our culture is very much focused on, like, you know, what you need to follow this traditional path of, you know, you just need to find a job, and that needs to be separate from your life and from what you care about and from your relationships, or you need to, you know, go to college or go to school where you're going to memorize facts, but that's disconnected from the ways in which you can actually add value to the people around you. I think so much of what we tell people that they should be doing is bifurcating work and productivity from meaning and relationships when they should be intertwined.
The world has changed. Technology has fundamentally reshaped
how we must learn, grow, and create our lives.
WEquil is a community and education solution,
preparing humans for this new world
by cultivating what makes each of us unique, our creative intelligence.